Hello everyone, it's Dan. Welcome back. I'm very excited today. I'm feeling a little bit like a kid at Christmas. I got a very large package in the mail today, all the way from the UK, from Northstar Military Figures, who were kind and gracious enough to not only send me several boxes of Frostgrave and Oathmark new releases to share with you in future videos, but very excitingly for me, they sent me their entire range of their new Silver Bayonet Italy release, which just came out 2 days ago and includes 2 box sets of this size and 8 blister packs. So I'm very excited to go through these with you. If you're not familiar with Silver Bayonet, it is a Napoleonic Gothic horror game. So essentially the background to it is that in and right after the Napoleonic War, sort of the horrors of the war have awakened some ancient evils. And so you have war bands going around sort of Mordheim style to either hunt down some of the monsters or find resources, do various tasks. The game itself kind of reminds me of a blending of RPG and some skirmish style games. I'm not going to get into the rules. I don't feel like I'm qualified enough to talk about the rules. Guerrilla Miniature Games did an excellent review of the recently released Italy campaign book. I'm going to put a link in the description to that. You should go check that out if you're interested in this, because I think this is a really cool combination of themes here, and I'm excited to start this game up myself. But here today, what I'd like to go over are the miniatures. Specifically, as I mentioned, there are 2 boxes of 8 miniatures apiece. These are kind of the warband boxes, and there are 8 blister packs to go through as well. So I think what I'll do here is I'm going to go through the boxes first, and then the blister packs I'll go through in the order of what we would call SKU, like the item number on the blister packs themselves. So first things first, both of the boxes here are similarly styled in terms of layout. You've got a nice, beautifully painted miniature on the front of both of the boxes here. Explanation of what they are. I like that from a layout standpoint. I think that's very evocative and well done. And on the back here, of course, you've got more painted figures showing exactly what you get in the set, which, as you guys know, I'm a huge fan of. Seeing completed painted models on the back, breakdown of the contents, and I also like that they're photoshopped. Like, you know, it's nice to sometimes see them with like a background, but I prefer this where the miniatures are isolated and you have a really clear idea of what comes in the set. So we're going to go through the first box here. I need to apologize in advance. So I'm, of course, American. I speak English and I speak conversational German, which makes me, I think, especially ill-suited to pronouncing some of these Italian names. So I'm going to do my best, but again, a big apology in advance here to the entire nation of Italy for any mispronunciations. So we have here first this warband, again, 8 miniatures that come in this set, and you can see there's a breakdown of like each one has a slightly different role, which has different in-game impacts. But we'll go through that as I'm pulling the miniatures out here. This is a Kingdom of Napoli unit. We would say Naples here in the United States, but I can't imagine that's correct. So let's go ahead and slide it open. I find this box design very nostalgic as well. I'll talk about the blister packs here in a second too, but this very much reminds me of miniatures sort of from my youth as I started getting into wargaming, and I like this design. So you can see the box itself was kind of a sleeve that goes over the top, and then you have this cardboard box underneath with the miniatures inside, packed safely in some bubble wrap here. So again, 8 figures in the set. Here they are here. We're going to look at each of these in detail, and then just so you understand sort of the flow of the video, I'm going to assemble them, clean them up just a little bit, cut some of the metal pieces off, bend some of the metal into place as is to be expected with pewter figures, and then I'll do a scale comparison so you can see kind of how these scale up to some of the other miniatures that are in my collection. So again, just as a reminder, what we're looking at here is the Kingdom of Napoli, and I'll look at these one at a time here and walk you through what these are. I guess it seems appropriate to start with the officer. So this is the officer here. Beautiful sculpt, nice large hat on this guy. Lovely stuff. Minimal, bits to clean up here, flash, etc. Very nice sculpting on the face. Then we're on to what is called a light infantryman. This one's got a bedroll in addition to haversack ammunition pouch. This guy here is an irregular. I really like what they've done in terms of styling, because of course there's sort of a base uniform, but as these are kind of like post-war former soldiers, you know, some of them have adopted cloaks and stuff, sort of a slightly more, well, irregular form of uniform. A little bit of bending on the rifle there, but again, that's very much to be expected with pewter miniatures. No problem at all, bends right into place. This guy here is a provincial soldier. You can see a fur-skin cap there as well. Even the way that they're wearing their haversacks slightly differently from one another, I think is very cool. Different foot gear on them as well. Really gives the feeling of a group of former soldiers that are kind of now hunting down monsters. This is a agent provocateur. Again, I'm sure that has some kind of in-game meaning, but for our purposes here, we're really just looking at the miniatures. This guy's got a club, also a cloak, slightly different style cloak with a collar on it, which is nice. And taller boots. Again, excellent detail on the face on these. And then this guy here is a sapper. So also armed with a musket, ammo box on the front there. And he's got an axe there. Also slightly different style cap. Rolled up sleeves, little details like that I absolutely love. There's so much character in these figures. And then a little crucifix here. So no shortage of detail and personality on these guys. This guy is a grenadier. Get another religious item there. Patch on the sleeve. Beautifully done. And then finally we have a conscript. This is the only two-piece miniature that's in this set. It's just a simple matter of gluing this on here. Lovely. And again, I think every single one of them has a slightly different style hat, which is very cool, even just for, you know, miniature identification in-game. That's a clever way to not only add personality and interest to the figures, but help them be identified in-game. So that was the Kingdom of Napoli unit. Let's move into the Calabresi unit. Very similar box on this one. This is going to be a sleeve over a cardboard box. This unit, compared to the last one, which had more of a like former military vibe to them, these guys definitely seem more like irregulars, kind of like the local townsfolk. So slightly different style of warband there from a theme standpoint. One other cool aspect of the game, as I understand it, is that the monsters sort of act independent of the two players, or I guess even more players, but they sort of roam around the battlefield doing their own thing, which adds a neat element to the game, but also means that there is the opportunity for solo play. That you could have your warband, you know, pitted off against the monsters that are just sort of working autonomously according to the rules. So again, 8 figures in this set as well. All of them are one piece. And again, just from a quick overview standpoint here before we look at them in detail, beautifully, beautifully done. So let's look at each of these in more detail. We'll start with the officer again, I think. So this is the officer. He has a sword. Doesn't look like he has a firearm, but again, I don't think that necessarily means anything in game. Beautiful figure. Again, I can't stress enough what a great job they have done in terms of making everybody look slightly different from one another. This is a champion of the faith. So sort of a battle nun with a club there. Excellently done. And again, very minimal cleanup on a metal figure. I'm used to having lots of little like pieces sticking off of them. Lots of mold lines that I would have to scrape off, but I really don't see much of that at all. This is, it looks like either it's, well, I don't want to speak out of turn here. I think Lupo, this is called, here, let me not even butcher this. Lupo Menmaro. So, as an American, that could be a name, but I think Lupo is wolf, so I don't know if that's wolf hunter or somebody that can turn into a werewolf. Maybe if you know, drop a line down in the comments here. But this is a cool looking dude, like a villager, just with a hammer. And fighting in the style of like a cloak and dagger. It's very cool. And again, look at the detail on the face. The beard there. That is one thing I gotta say about metal miniatures in particular. Not only do they have nice heft to them, again, like miniatures you might have remembered from your youth, but the detail, like the crispness that you can achieve with pewter is just really, really impressive. This is a clergyman, which looks actually like he's wearing some kind of, yeah, spectacles there. In the painted version, you can see them here too. So that's very cool, and of course, neat to see like monk with a blunderbuss. See another very well sculpted beard there, well proportioned model. Not a whole lot on him, but there shouldn't be. Very, very nice. We have a different irregular. Again, nice to see different headgear there. This is also an irregular. We have an occultist, which might actually be one of my favorite figures so far. I just find the pose very dynamic. There's a lot of storytelling in these figures. Look at the way the hair is flowing, the ribbon on the staff as well. And then we have a highwayman, which is a very cool concept. You can see he's got a face mask on there. Again, look at the movement. It's the same thing here, like if you have these two figures standing side by side, like it really does feel like a gust of wind just hit the battlefield, which is, I think, excellent for the subject matter that we're talking about here. So lovely, those are the two box sets. Now let's work through the blister packs here. Again, there are 8 of them. And this is TSB 045 Briganti. So I think brigands is what we're talking about here. And there are 5 figures in this set. And the blister packs here are what you would expect. No bases in any of these, by the way, just something to be aware of, which is fine because I'm going to base them the way I want to. And that's something we talked about in other videos, that I actually kind of prefer that these days because so many of us are using things for different gaming systems, different gaming groups have different expectations for things. So I just prefer to source my own bases anyway, keep costs down. So these guys, again, these have some thematic crossover with the set that we just, the Calabresi that we just looked at. And again, 5 figures in this blister pack, but let's look at each of these individually. All one piece. Again, very well sculpted, a little bit of flash to clean up and a little bit of bending to do. But again, that's totally normal for metal figures. Let's slide these aside. We'll look at these individually here. So no individual names for these, but these certainly look like some of the like irregulars and conscript figures that we saw in some of the box sets. And this guy's got a nice gut on him there too. So again, talk about personality for role-playing games. This one looks like the occultist figure right? Some kind of religious figure, but holding a rifle. Pretty terrifying prospect, but again, look at the sculpting on the hair here. Nice curls on the hair. All of the figures, too, have nice, like, flowing, draped clothing that they're wearing, which will be a lot of fun from a painting standpoint. Another figure that looks kind of like an irregular, holding his gun in a slightly different way. Very, very cool. Here's another nun or occultist holding the club. This one actually reminds me more of the like Battle Sister that we saw earlier. Or Champion of the Faith, I think is what she was formerly called. And then finally, one more, what I'll call irregular. But again, these 5 figures were all from the Briganti blister pack. Next, we're moving into some monsters here. So this is TSB 046. This is the Grave Golem. So I mentioned that there are monsters in the game. And I don't know if there's any scenario where either character can have monsters in their warband, or if the monsters just sort of act independent of them. But what we have here is a very large, hefty, I mean, a lot of weight to this guy. Grave Golem here. And yeah, look at the detail on this. So what it looks like to me is a anthropomorphized collection of like debris and bones, and yeah, a nice large coffin here on the back. Of just being held together by magic into a large monster. Again, very clean sculpt, very little in terms of like flash work that needs to get cleaned up here. Just this little piece sticking off here. But otherwise, tons and tons of details. This will be so much fun to paint up. Some tombstones and stuff in there as well. And that's the Grave Golem figure. And next, we're going to move into TSB 047, which I would imagine is Italian for the Necromancer. Oh yeah, that's neat. Look at that. It's got a ring wraith vibe to him, but so much flowing cloak here. Let me give it a spin here. So you can make out sort of the impression of a skeletal face, but it's like inverted the way that they've sculpted it. I think is very well done. And you've got a rib cage showing through. So yeah, lots of flowing robes to paint on this guy, and a little bit of visual interest there with the skeletal remains inside. Very neat. And then we have TSB 048, the Necromancer Acolytes. So I can imagine these are his assistants. Yeah, so what they've done, carrying over some of the clothing designs from the irregulars and the occultists here. We have some that are instead the baddies, I imagine, so some necromancers. So yeah, check this out. It's neat to have them to compare to one another. But yeah, this is the occultist from the Calabresi set. And then we have on the left here the necromancer acolyte. Yeah. It's very, very cool. Almost like a light side, dark side version of the figure. She's holding, oh, look at that, like that pendant in her hand. Look at that detail. It looks like a little moon face. Can you make that out? Yeah. So well done. So much character to these figures. I'm gonna have a blast painting them up. Same thing here with this, reminds me of one of the irregulars. You can see he's also holding that moon pendant, or he's wearing it around his neck. It's got a little staff. So much fun. So Necromancer Acolytes there in that set. And we're moving on to TSB 049. This is a Nightmare Witch. Okay, so this also looks somewhat like the acolyte that we just looked at, but she's holding the staff of the other guy. So I don't know if this is like a named character, but a beautiful, beautiful figure, and that's really why we're here today, right? It's just a look at the miniatures themselves. Excellently done. Neat detail on the staff there, too. That's the Nightmare Witch. Then we have TSB 050 050 Spectral Soldiers. So this one, like the Briganti, comes with 5 figures. And it looks like they're all in Napoleonic garb, but sort of in the wraithing process. I'm not sure that they are. Definitely like spectral soldiers, as the name implies. So let's look at these in detail here. Again, another excellently done series of sculpts here. So all of them, you can see they've got sort of their uniforms that they're wearing, and then every piece of it at some point is flowing into like flames. It's very cool. All the faces are well done too, sort of like mummified faces. Even this one, you can see like the legs are turning into flame. These are gonna be so much fun to paint up. And then another one here. And then the fourth one. Really spooky, distorted face on this guy. A little bit more flash on these guys than the others, but I mean, you can see from all the spiky bits coming off of them, that is absolutely to be expected, and nothing difficult to clean up. And then here's the fifth one. Lovely, lovely sculpts. 2 more, stick with me. We've got TSB 051. These are skeletal soldiers Napoleonic. So you can see, how cool is this? So these are more, again, generic skeleton zombies, but in Napoleonic uniforms. Very well done. Missing a jaw here. And a suitable amount of like damage to the uniform. You can see like maybe where he got shot, where it's starting to rot away. Very, very cool. Similar thing here too. Very good proportions too. You worry sometimes with sculpting skeletons, especially if they're underneath a uniform. They might be too large, but I think the proportions here are fantastic. And we can juxtapose these with the spectral soldiers that we just looked at. Very neat. So again, these are skeletal soldiers. Some more monsters for your game there. And then finally, moving into TSB 052, skeletal soldiers. These are Normans though, so these are going to be wearing male hauberks, no firearms on them. Yeah, excellently done. Look at that, the detail on the chainmail. Yeah, really awesome. A bit of the ribcage coming through there. So I'll tell you guys, these are really fantastic. Certainly not lacking for any amount of personality or detail. Now, as I said, what I'd like to do from here is I'm going to clean them up a bit, and I'm going to do some scale comparisons with some other miniatures in my collection so you can see kind of where they will fit in potentially with your collection. So here they are all cleaned up. There are 35 models total if you were to pick up this entire new range from Northstar, one of which is a large paperweight of a model. And yeah, I think they're all fantastic. It took me exactly like 20 minutes to clean them up, just because, as I pointed out while we were going through them, there's very little flash on them to begin with. There's a little bit of bending on some of the rifles, but they bend into place without any problem. It's really beautiful stuff. I do want to do my normal comparison here to kind of a standard lineup of figures from other manufacturers. The main reason I think with this particular range is in case you're trying to incorporate these figures into maybe some of your existing Napoleonic figure ranges. And I don't have any Napoleonics in my collection. Let me see if I can find a good standard figure here. Yeah, let's do this Briganti model. So here's a Briganti model on the left. What I'm going to start running through here is comparisons with other manufacturers. This is a Games Workshop Lord of the Rings Gandalf figure. We've got, in case you're curious, a Games Workshop Inquisitor from their Empire line. We have a Wargames Atlantic Foot Knight. Perry Foot Knight. Warlord Games, Dachin. And then a Victrix Viking. So you can see, for those of you who might, again, have some existing Napoleonic stuff, Perry, of course, has a extensive line of plastics. So here are what Perry figures look like next to these medals. And then Warlord is the same. Warlord's scales are a little bit less consistent, but I will say from experience that those Celts, or the basis for those figures, are pretty consistent with what their Napoleonics are. And I'm going to show the Wargames Atlantic one more time because they do have some riflemen as well. And then just for kicks, a couple more. Here's the Wargames Atlantic British Expeditionary Force figure. Again, just getting you an idea of what some of these other manufacturers are going to produce, what the scales are going to look like. This is a weird one. This is Perry Miniatures, but it has also a Perry Miniatures Civil War era musket in his hand. So this is probably like the best approximation of what a Perry Napoleonic is going to look like with these figures. And the reason I think I would recommend, especially for skirmish wargaming like this, like these figures, not only are they going to blend really well with your existing collection of plastic Napoleonics, but as we were pointing out while going through the figures, they have so much personality, right? Like a lot of the reason that multi-part plastics are liked for Napoleonic scale games is precisely because they don't have any character, right? They're usually like two-piece models, and yeah, those could work for a skirmish game, but right, wouldn't you rather have a figure that has lots of movement, animation, especially if you're only talking about like 8 figures per side in a skirmish war game? So yeah, I think these are going to blend excellently. So what's the verdict? I think these are really fantastic models. I think that if you have even an existing range of Napoleonic figures, I think these are going to blend in beautifully. Or you could either use them to add just character to some of your units in non-Silver Bayonet games, but also, of course, I think that these would be excellent for games of Silver Bayonet or other skirmish style games. So I'm really looking forward to painting some of these up. I think it'll be the first collection of videos I do where I'm just going to try my best to paint according to what's on the box. So highly recommend. Again, I'm going to put a link in the description to Guerrilla Miniatures review of the new rules, the campaign supplement. I'm going to put a link in the description to Northstar's website if you would like to go check out these figures in more detail. And I'm going to have a couple of unboxings now of, as I foreshadowed at the beginning, Frostgrave and Oathmark sets in the coming week or two here. So stay tuned for all of those. Appreciate you dropping by for this one. And until next time, happy gaming.